Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol battle report. Today for you we have a 19 threat match of Dormammu's Dark Dimension versus the Avengers. And the Avengers list is once again featuring the Hulkbuster for lots of stompy mech action, but we can cover that in more detail as we look at the teams and then get started. So the Dark Dimension team is obviously led by Dormammu because it has to be. He is the supreme ruler and his thralls that he has brought along with him today for 19 threat. From left to right, Okoye, Proxima Midnight, Toad and Enchantress, so he'll be giving them extra power in the power phase. He generates power off them doing things and getting hurt by his affiliation bonus if they have 6 or more power in the power phase, and just enjoys getting fed power from everywhere and controlling the middle of the board, probably. Their tactics cards are Dark Restoration, Dark Empowerment, Med Pack, Eyes on the Prize and Warpath. So here is our 19th threat of Avengers, and although the Hulkbuster is here again, it's actually going to be Sam Wilson that's leading the team, so it's the all new, all different Avengers affiliation bonus for people healing and clearing statuses and getting free moves if someone gets dazed. So Sam is the leader. The Hulkbuster is here though, and he might become Little Iron Man if things go badly for him, but he's starting the game obviously as Big Iron Man. And then War Machine is here again, Vision is here again, but this time Hawkeye is stepping in for some backline control, hopefully. And their tactics cards, we come over here. Avengers Assemble, Second Wind, Helios Laser Bombardment, Heavy Firepower, and Reversal. And you've probably already seen the icons on the map, so you know what crisis cards are being played, but just to cover it, they're both threat 19, so it doesn't matter which one was picked. But the extraction is Panic Grip City, so there's the 4 civilians. You hold them for 1 victory point, but if at any time you're willing to spend 6 power, you can get them off the board permanently for 2 victory points. I like the strategic extra element this crisis mission adds about when's the best time to get rid of a civilian for that extra point and to deny points. The secure intrusions open up. It's the Dark Dimension portals. It's very fighting because Dormammu is here. It's just a fun mission. I think it's a more fun version of the Gamma Shelters actually. So that's being played yet again. We have the 4 civilians, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down the middle 3 Dark Dimension portals, which you can take 1 damage to interact with and get teleported around with, and it's 1 victory point for each one held. So we are all set up at deployment. The Dark Dimension is to your left, the Avengers are to your right, and it is the Avengers who are taking first activation. Both teams have 5 miniatures, just for the record. So we've got a 2-pronged attack from the Dark Dimension. Toad, Proxima down here, Dormammu in the centre, because of course he is, and then all the way over here is Enchantress and Okoye teaming up to go up that side. And if we come back around here, Vision is on top of the XXX bar up here, the Hulkbuster and Hawkeye in the middle there, and then Sam and Rhodey up there in the top corner. So with that, we can jump into battle round 1 and get this started. The Vision got the game started and he can fly, so no hindrance or anything coming down from there. 1 move was enough to let him get next to the civilian that was in the corner there of the tree. He paid 1 power to pick it up, and then he did like a half move-ish to get just within 1 of this portal. He is in his energy form as well, so he'll be rolling 5 dice against energy attacks, because Proxima and Toad's ranged attacks are energy based, so it made the most sense to keep him safe. 5 defense dice against their attacks, that's his best shot. It was a snap activation for the Dark Dimension. Toad activated, he moved up to, well, he doesn't need to move right up to because he can interact within range 2, but he moved close to a civilian, paid 1 power to pick it up, and then moved just within 1 of that portal, countering Vision being there, so it's currently a draw. So sooner or later someone over on this flank is going to have to move, despite the fact that Enchantress is probably going to take advantage of it. Rhodey activated War Machine, he double moved, did the exact same thing as the other 2 have so far, picked up the civilian on his way, and then ended just within 1 of the Dark Dimension portal right there. So Enchantress did activate, but 1 medium move forwards was not enough to put Rhodey within range 3. She did however pay 1 power to pick up the civilian. She normally only has 2 power for being an Asgardian in the power phase. Flames of the Fall Team gave her an extra 1, so she was sitting on 3. So 1 to pick up the civilian. She also then just did another move to get within 1 of the portal, however the 2 power she had left was enough for a Siren's Call. You pick a character within 3 and advance them small. She moved Rhodey back that away, so he's no longer holding the portal. So Captain America was next up for the Avengers, and he had a bit of a busy turn, starting with playing a turn 1 Avengers Assemble again. Both Sam and also the Hulkbuster paid 1 power, so they advanced small. That put him closer, so that he could do a shield throw on Enchantress. The Hulkbuster's just moved up small up there as well. He did a shield throw on Enchantress. It didn't do any damage because he was going against her 5 Mystic defense because of her roll for it. but it does generate him 1 power, so for his other actual action, he walked up to the portal she's at, paid 1 power, got it on the dice roll, and could go wherever he wanted, and decided to pop out over here with Vision. Now he has taken 1 damage for travelling through the Dark Dimension portals, but he's over here now. Okoye activated, or rather the Thrall that looks like Okoye, she double medium moved and is holding that left portal with Enchantress. I think they basically for sure got that one this turn. There was some very precise measuring done next as the Hulkbuster activated. So from where he got moved up by Avengers Assemble, he was essentially in the grass here. 1 medium move, put him there, which is just within 1 of this portal, out of line of sight of Dormammu because of the corner of the building, and just barely within range 3 of Okoye, so he fired his heavy repulsor blast at her. It spiked and did 4 damage. It was a mistake sending Sam through the portal, because if he'd stayed there it would have been a draw now. Okoye is dazed, and that's a lot of power generated for both of them, and 1 power generated for Dormammu as well, but that was a good start for the Hulkbuster. Proxima Midnight activated. For her first action she moved up long, and then she initiated a range 3 spear throw on Sam. After it's resolved, she gets placed within 1 of her position. It's a forced one, you can't choose whether or not you do it, so that's what put her next to the portal afterwards. She did really well with the roll. It did 3 damage to Sam. No wilds to proc the poison, but with the 1 damage he did to himself, he's already 1 away from being dazed. Last activation for Battle Round 1 for the Avengers. Hawkeye double medium moved to help the Hulkbuster control that central portal, and they will continue to hold it unless Dormammu blows him off the table, because it is over to the Dark God himself to end off the round. So Dormammu activated. He spent his 3 power he had on Not of This World to get teleported within 2 of his current position, which put him in range to Hex Bolt poor Hawkeye. His plan was to fire a Hex Bolt, daze Hawkeye, move up as other action, deny the point. The first attack against Hawkeye in his poor 2 energy defense, it did 3 and hexed him, left him alive on 1, so there was either a choice of killing him or just letting it be, and of course Dormammu decided there would be no peace. Fired another Hex Bolt, and this one just did 8 damage, you know, a casual 8 damage, double killed Hawkeye. So in terms of the Avengers affiliation bonus activating now, Captain America here is going to heal 1 damage. He doesn't have a status effect to get rid of, he's not going to move, but he's just going to heal the damage because he's the only one who's damaged besides Hawkeye, who got splatted into the pavement. So then Battle Round 1, I sincerely doubt that this one is going to go the distance like the last match did, because one way or another this is going to be just 2 forces annihilating each other, I feel. In terms of victory points though, it was actually even. Both teams have 2 of the 4 survivors for 2 victory points each. This portal down here is contested, 2 and 2. This portal is held by the Hulkbuster because Hawkeye's dazed, and then this portal over here is held by Enchantress because Okoye is dazed. So both teams, 3 victory points gained, and as we go into Battle Round 2, the Avengers retain their priority for first activation. So with that, let's jump in. So Battle Round 2 got started with the Hulkbuster. Their first activation was, their first action was to move out of the alleyway there into the open here, so it was within 2 of the car that's now gone, but we'll cover that in a second. Their next action was to use Helios Laser Bombardment. Have to do it during Tony's turn, 2 default, but then any number of allied characters can pitch in any amount of power to up the number of dice. Hulkbuster chipped in 3, Hawkeye chipped in 6, and Sam chipped in 1. So I think that totaled 12, because they pitched in 10 and it's default 2, and Sweep and Clear didn't matter because there's no other enemies nearby. All said and done, to Dormammu it did 4 damage. Only 4. Could have done better. He's got 10 health on his healthy side, I think, and 13 on his, or it might be vice versa. Either way, the other 3 damage came from Hulkbuster spending another 3 power for Now I'm Mad. Picked up the car here, and it's an overly large car. Default car size in Crisis Protocol was size 2, but it's a larger one, so it counts as size 3. Chucked that at Dormammu. He whiffed his dodge roll a little bit, got 1 success, so 3 default damage. So he is sitting on 7, which isn't too shabby. So Dormammu activated with the hopes of counter-attacking, I guess, although keep in mind when he gets damaged he only gets 1 power that way. He generates power in a lot of other ways. So from where he was, he fired his Hex Bolt at Hawkeye with the hopes of just like killing him, because Hawkeye has rubbish energy defense. It did 1 damage. Then he tried to do it again and he whiffed. So not exactly great for the Dark Dimension God. He paid 3 for Not of This World though, and teleported forwards 2 just so that he is contesting, although obviously currently he's being outnumbered. But yeah, the counter-attack there was not good. So Captain America activated next for the Avengers, although I love that in the background Dormammu and the Hulkbuster are just like beating each other up. But anyway, he started with a Red Wing Assault on Toad, which also involves a free move within 2 of your position afterwards, so he chased. It also includes a throw if it does damage, if you're size 3 or less, which it did, so he chucked Toad, hit him for 3 damage, it did really well, and then when he landed for his other action, he did a shield throw, boinged into Toad for another 3 damage, dazing him, and dropping the civilian, and then got the ricochet, boinged into the back of Proxima's head for 1 damage, which was really good. He paid 1 power to pick up the civilian that Toad was holding, so he's now holding it, and in order to try and maintain it, once Proxima tries to murder him, Second Wind got played at the end of his activation. Both he and Hawkeye played 1 power to heal 1 damage. Well, Proxima tried to get revenge, but the dice rolls have not been on the Dark Dimension side. She started by spending 4 power on Quantum Starburst, 6 energy. If it does any damage at all, it does a plethora of stats effects. It did nothing. He fully blocked it. Didn't even Vibranium Shield because he doesn't have any power. She then did her basic strike. That did better. 5 dice physical, I believe it was, with Pierce, and that did, thanks to Pierce, because otherwise it would have done no damage. It did 2 to Sam, but that puts him at 4, so Second Wind has kept him alive on 1 HP. Never mind, it does seem like the bad luck has also infected the Avengers. War Machine moved up. He did his Beam 3 Metal Storm, so it would hit Enchantress and Okoye. Started with Okoye, no damage. Went to roll for Enchantress, Okoye spent for Bodyguard, and also took no damage. So Hawkeye activated next for the Avengers, and if you followed the battle reports on this channel, you might know that Hawkeye has a reputation for hitting vastly above his weight class, and that trend continues. He started just in front of that portal there, wounded side, so he's not contributing anyway. He fired some arrows into the God of the Dark Dimension, Dormammu, did 6 damage. Dormammu only had 3 health left, he is 10 health on his healthy side. So Hawkeye dazed Dormammu, and with the power generated from that, he used Hook Arrow to shoot over here, and then fired some more arrows and got 1 through. It was just 1, it wasn't 2 down to 1 because of her invulnerability roll, and it was a wild, so Proxima is also shocked. Hawkeye keeping up with the trend. Okoye activated next, stayed where she was, spent 4 on her Vibranium Spear Thrust, which is a 5 physical and then also includes a free strike afterwards, neither of which did any damage. So as her other action she did another basic strike, and it did 1 damage to War Machine, so not great there. That wasn't even 2 down to 1, much like what just happened to Proxima. That was just straight up 1 damage, and she burned through a lot of power. She is still sitting on enough to Bodyguard though. So the Vision was the last one to activate in Battle Round 2 for the Avengers. He just did 2 syntheses. What is the plural of synthesis? I don't know. He used synthesis twice for a total of 4 power generation, but each one counted as an action. Then he spent 2 of that on calculated trajectory to pick up Proxima. Forgot to move all of her icons there. And chucked her. There was a lamppost there. She got chucked into it, but she's larger than it, so the lamppost has been destroyed. And she takes 1 damage from the collision. With that, it is over to Enchantress to end the round. So Enchantress spent her 3 power on Enthrall, which does a bunch of stuff depending on how many wilds she got. She rolled really well, but only got the 1 wild, not that it matters. She did 7 damage, reduced to 6 because of his titanium alloy. Much more than was required. That War Machine is dazed, he already had 1 damage on him. So he dropped the civilian he's holding. She didn't have any power left to pick it up, nor can you hold more than 1 civilian in the crisis. So it got dropped behind Okoye there. She had an unused action, but nothing to do with it. She doesn't have any power to travel in the portal, not that she can really. Well, I guess she could have. She could have left Okoye there, because it's not competing with anybody. But no power left, so she's just going to stay there, and that's us at the end of the round. So at the end of Battle Round 2, this bloody match is definitely not going to be as long as that last one, and I think it's the first time Dormammu has ever been dazed. Score-wise, the Dark Dimension holds only 1 civilian, because the other one is on the ground over here. Enchantress is holding 1. She's also holding that back portal, but that's it. So they only gain 2 victory points, taking them to 5. The Avengers, however, they're currently holding 2 civilian, because even though War Machine dropped that one over there, the one that Toad was holding has been stolen. So Sam is holding 1, although he's wounded, and Vision is holding the other. They're obviously both holding this portal as well. And then the Hulkbuster is holding the center, because Dormammu is dazed, taking the Avengers to 7. So 7 plays 5 as we go into Battle Round 3, the Avengers still taking first activation. Proxima activated and did another Quantum Starburst on Sam. It did 3 damage all said and done, despite the fact she was rolling 1 less die, and he did use Vibranium Shield. It did not do well in his defense roll. So he dropped a civilian, dropped it roughly there. For her other action, she chucked her spear at Vision just for the move within 1 afterwards. but just as well, it didn't do any damage because he's just been buffing his energy defense every turn. But it moved her close enough. She had 3 power left after hitting Sam and doing this move. 1 was spent to pick up the civilian, the other 2 was spent on medpack. Spend 2, heal 3, so she is back to full health. Still shocked, but holding a civilian. So War Machine activated from where he was standing and did a Metal Storm, the beam attack, so it would catch Enchantress and Okoye again. It did 2 damage to Okoye, and then she bodyguarded for Enchantress, although as it turns out it was irrelevant because the attack roll was 0. But that gave him enough power to do what he wanted to do. War Machine moved over here, he paid 1 to pick up that civilian, but it's still on the table because he then immediately paid 6 to teleport it off the table for 2 victory points. So the Avengers immediately gained 2 victory points, taking them to 9. So it was the Vision who activated next. However, I don't think I mentioned on camera that when Sam was dazed, Hawkeye took advantage of his leadership to get moved small this way because no one was injured at that point who wasn't dazed, so there wasn't really anything else to do with it. Anyway, Vision started by paying 2 for Calculate Trajectory, picked up Proxima, chucked her at Toad. She takes 1 damage by default. He took 1 damage after the dodge. Then he fired his Solar Ray at them. Sam would have been caught, but doesn't matter because he's dazed. She took 3 down to 2. He took 3, and on his flip side he only has 3 health in total, so Toad is gone, although Dormammu will be able to bring him back at the end of the turn / in the next power phase. So Vision had a really good turn there. He's going up in my estimations of how useful he is. So a real simple activation for Dormammu next, but effective. He did 2 incantations of obliteration for a total of, was that all 10 power he used? I think it might have been. How much is it normally? Yeah, he used all 10 power he was sitting on, which doesn't bode well for Toad coming back at the end of his turn, but still. First one did 8 damage reduced to 7 by Built to Take It, his ability where he can spend 1 to reduce damage taken by 1. Then the other one did 5 down to 4. So in total he's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got 11 damage on him of his 13 health. Hulkbuster has 2 HP and is hurting, but now he has a lot of power to play with, which is good. So he may still count as healthy when he flips his card and becomes small, but the Hulkbuster is sitting on a lot of power and he wants to use it before that happens, because Enchantress could probably do it if she travelled through the portal. Hulkbuster activated, spent 2 plus 3 for a hit and run Meteor Punch on Dormammu. It does have a throw built in, however it's size 4 or less. Dormammu is size 5, so he couldn't throw him. Did smack him pretty hard though for 5 damage, so you might be wondering how is Dormammu moved if the throw is not good enough for him. Well, after the hit and run, it positioned the Hulkbuster here to get a push, and his Heavy Repulsor Blast has no size limit. So he fired that at Dormammu, only did 1 damage, but it did force him back small. Not that it really matters because he's flipped, he's healthy on both sides regardless. But Dormammu's been pushed back, has 6 damage off his 12. I thought it was 13, it is 12 on his flip side. So he burned through a lot of his power and is doing nothing else. Enchantress activated, and she can't actually try and go through the dark dimensional portals unless she's willing to drop a civilian, which she is not because Okoye's only got 2 health left and then is dead. So instead, oh, I'm going Batman angle there. Instead, she spent 3 on Enthrall on War Machine. It did 4 damage reduced to 3 because of his titanium armor, and then also slowed him as well. So he's got 2 health left on his wounded side now, which is why he got rid of the civilian first chance he could get. So now it's over to Hawkeye, I believe, to end off... No, not to end off the turn, because Okoye hasn't gone yet. So Hawkeye activated and just loosed arrow after arrow into poor Proxima Midnight. The first barrage did 1 damage, well, sorry, 2 damage down to 1 because of her invulnerability roll. The second one did 3 down to 2, and she only had 1 health left at that point. So she is dazed, she dropped her civilian, and he has paid 1 to pick it up. Now, it is worth mentioning, totally forgot about her martial prowess. She couldn't have done it on the first one, but she could have done it on the second, but didn't, and by that point the dice were already rolled, but that was an oversight. So for lack of anything better to do, Okoye just did 2 strikes because she wants to hold on to bodyguard power on War Machine. First one whiffed, second one did 2 damage, reduced to 1. He has 1 health remaining, and that is the end of Battle Round 3. So then Battle Round 3, the Avengers are running away with this. They're holding on to 2 civilians. Vision has 1 and Hawkeye has 1 that Proxima was holding, so they're generating a victory point each. Vision is the only healthy character, well, it's him and Hawkeye, but he's the only healthy character, holding this portal for 1. The Hulkbuster is still healthy and holding this one for 1. And over here, Enchantress has a civilian for the Dark Dimension, and she and Okoye are holding that portal. So the Dark Dimension gained 2 victory points, taking them up to 7, but the Avengers earned, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 there, taking them up to 13, and they're retaining first activation in Battle Round 4 as well, so this could be decisive in this round. So Battle Round 4 got started with Hawkeye. He immediately spent 6 power to get rid of the civilian that he picked up, putting the Avengers on 15. They're 1 away from winning. He then shot arrows into Proxima. First one did 3 down to 2. 2 wilds, bleed and shock. Oops, bleed and shock. Other one just did 1 damage flat, so nothing there. 3 damage over 5 or 6 on our healthy side. But that doesn't matter. What matters is whoever activates next for the villains, showing my bias there, for the Dark Dimension, if they don't kill Vision, and he's on full health on his healthy side, energy defense buffed, not physical, he has enough power after 1 synthesis to get rid of the civilian he's holding. Avengers instantly win. So, whoever activates for the Dark Dimension now, if they don't kill him, the game's over. So unfortunately for the Dark Dimension, their best shot was the 5 dice basic strike from Proxima because it's physical against 2 defense dice. If Dormammu hadn't gotten so focused on trying to take out the Hulkbuster and had enough to like move Incantation of Obliteration, even though he's got 4 defense mystic, that might have been better. Either way though, her first attempt to do a basic strike did nothing. Her second did much better for 3, but still nowhere close to killing him. So at this point, Vision activates, spends 6 power, gets rid of the civilian, takes the Avengers to 17 and ends the game. So essentially the top of turn 4 is the end of the game, which is a marked difference from the last game, which went the full length, maybe for the first time ever on this channel. Of course, the war criminal Sorcerer Supreme wasn't here this time to help out, but I expected Dormammu to beat up the Hulkbuster. As it turns out, it didn't end up that way, but I feel like the way to defeat the Hulkbuster is drown him in status effects. Him being constantly poisoned the last time he was on the table was definitely bad. He has no natural immunities, whereas Dormammu does. But yeah, that seemed like a solid mix, or a solid matchup rather, that Dormammu, he'd just do it. There wasn't any opportunity really where it would be advantageous to push the Hulkbuster, but it was forgotten that his, what's the attack called? Feel the Power of Darkness, which is just like if Dormammu gets hit, he can spend 2 power and push whoever hit him small. Not that useful when he's got such a huge base and a medium move, but forgot that it does also apply Hex. If Hex had been applied to him, Dormammu would not nearly have taken as much damage if he'd made sure that the Hulkbuster got Hex early. That was a misplay. Enchantress and Okoye, they held this area totally fine. No complaints there, they did really well. Toad and Proxima, not a good matchup. And Hawkeye, oh yeah, it wasn't even the Hulkbuster that did all the damage to Dormammu. I forgot, it was Hawkeye. Hawkeye spiked really well on his bow attack. I mean, the Hulkbuster did good as well. He did a lot of damage to him on his wounded side. But it was Hawkeye that actually beat him up. And Hawkeye did have Hex, just from the basic attack, but then lost it when he flipped his card, obviously. So between the two of them, they managed to take on Dormammu and walk away, which is pretty stellar. Interesting. It is also interesting that Dormammu, size 5, Hulkbuster, size 4, when clearly the Hulkbuster is larger very slightly in both height and very much so in girth. So it's obviously is jumping, so technically is shorter, but still it is quite kind of funny that Dormammu is a larger size in terms of the stat rather than the Hulkbuster, and that's what makes him immune to size 4 or less things. But the Hulkbuster is built to hit large things, which is why his heavy repulsor blast has no size limit on it. I hope they don't change that, because that's very thematic. Either way, it was fun getting the 2 large models on the table, even though the Dark Dimension didn't do so well that time, and forgetting a couple of rolls. And Feel the Power of Darkness, Martial Prowess, definitely would have made a difference. I feel a little difference, not necessarily a massive difference, but a little difference. And I think, like I said during recording, Vision is going up and up in my estimations. I think as the pool of available characters gets wider, his weaknesses are less important. But we're not here to talk shop. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ta-ta for now.